Good morning.
Good morning.
Everybody back here?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to Charity for giving me this opportunity to be here this morning. It's an extreme honor and privilege to be here. And I don't say that out of formality. I say that genuinely from the bottom of my heart. It's also awkward for me to be here, to be honest with you. Because growing up, any opportunity that I had to speak to a principal or a superintendent was not positive. All right, so it's kind of like PTSD for me. And I'm trying to get over the fact that I'm in a room full of school administrators, and it's positive. Right? Oftentimes, you go into those rooms, in those spaces, they get ready to call your mother, your grandmother, your grandfather, somebody has to come to school. So I'm just grateful that I'm here in a positive light. But sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Because I'm sure for many of you, you started out probably in the classroom, and you've had some students that were difficult. If you had some students that were difficult, can I get an amen? Oh, so most of you had great students. I didn't get many amens. Okay. Well, for any of you that had a difficult student, trust me, it resonates because that's part of who I was. So the reason that I'm here today, this is really like, I have to pinch myself. This is kind of like when you think about people that say they made it to the NBA or NFL, they couldn't imagine themselves being in that position, and now that they're here, it feels like I've arrived, so to speak, and I'm in this room, in this space with you guys. So sincerely, Charity, thank you for the opportunity. I just want to share my story with you this morning because I really want you to know the work that you do is really important, is really valuable, but I want to give you some context. All right, are there any Trenton school administrators in the room? Anybody from Trenton? Anybody that worked in Trenton at one point in time? One? Okay. Well, I was born and raised in the city of Trenton, New Jersey. The house that I grew up in is literally 20 minutes from here, 9.1 miles away. All right, a section of Trenton, New Jersey called Wilbur Section. All right, also known as East Trenton, near Trenton Central High School. That's where I was born and raised. All right, my mother got pregnant with me at the age of 19. 19, my mother got pregnant with me and gave birth to me at the age of 20. My grandmother stepped in and did what a lot of grandmothers did back in the 80s and 90s, and she stepped in and she said, I'm going to raise this young man. Because I want this boy to one day be a young man who could be successful in life. My grandmother valued education. Let me say it again. My grandmother valued education. An educator for 35 years. How many years?
35.
35 years my grandmother's an educator. Now my grandmother valued, and she taught me the importance of education. There was only one problem, one major problem. My grandmother's perspective and my perspective was two completely different perspectives. I thought growing up that if I want to be successful, like all of you are, there was three things that I had to become. And I'm not talking about a dope boy. I'm not talking about selling drugs. Can you tell me one of those three? Just somebody tell me one of those three things you thought I thought I had to become. Just shout it out. What do you think?
Teacher.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Athlete.
Athlete is one.
Musician.
Yes. Athlete. Musician. Doctor. Actor, yes. I thought I had to become an athlete, an actor, or entertainer. Now, can somebody tell me why? That's what I saw. Outside of athletes, entertainers, and rappers, those are legitimate ways. Obviously, we know the non-legitimate way would be drug dealers, dope boys, people in the community, right? So I thought, Reggie Wright wants to be successful, athlete, entertainer, or rapper, or hip-hop artist, or something of the sort. But my grandmother used to do something that always fascinated me. She wouldn't go to the ShopRite that was in Trenton, New Jersey. She would go to the ShopRite in Hamilton. Now my grandmother had an old school Thunderbird. Anybody remember Thunderbirds? She had an old school Thunderbird. And I used to sit in the back seat. And every time we would drive from Trenton to Hamilton, I would see the homes in Hamilton, New Jersey. I used to always wonder, what did it take for these people to live in these homes? They had a patch of grass in the front. They had a 2-car garage. What would it take for me to live in a home like this? You know what my grandmother would say? She would say it takes a what? Education. I say, nah, I don't take no education. Education can't get me in one of these homes. Grandma, you're supposed to say that. You're supposed to say that. You're a teacher. You're my grandmother. You're supposed to tell me that education matters. I never saw the value of an education. Now, my grandmother ironically taught in the public school system in Trenton, New Jersey, like I said, for 35 years. But just like any parent, you want the best for your what? Your child. So she sent me to the schools in Hamilton. She sent me to parochial schools. I went to a Catholic school from kindergarten through 12th grade. Well, there's only a problem. There's a couple problems, but one problem that sticks out to me when I think about my past experience going to schools from kindergarten to 12th grade in the Catholic schools in Hamilton, New Jersey. I was one of 2 blacks in my class. Let me change that. I was one of 2 blacks in the school. I was one of 2 blacks in the school. That was a problem. I felt isolated and alienated. My grandmother valued education. She said, son, I work hard. I get up every single day and I go to work. And I work hard to provide a better opportunity for yourself than I provided for your mother and your uncle. But internally, I was battling with the fact that I felt isolated and alienated. Not just from the people that looked like me in terms of my peers, but I never saw an educator that looked like me in elementary school. Now, they often say when you read, they say, well, if you see somebody that's going to look like you, you may find somebody that's what? A custodian. You know, you may find somebody that's support staff. No. There was no one in the school that looked like me. Am I being clear? No one, not a single person. So I had to fight this internal battle between pleasing my grandmother and not having any desire for an education. Because when I went to school, I felt out of place. Does that make sense? So when you feel out of place, you don't want to be there. So I had to struggle with this because I knew I had to please my grandmother. Well, why did I have to please my grandmother? Because my grandmother set high expectations. How many of you know expectations transcend race? Right? You set high expectations. It becomes the standard. What do I mean by the standard? The standard is certain things don't change. My grandmother had expectations that became standards, and those standards didn't change. And it was very simple. She just say things like this, Reggie, as long as God gives me breath in my body, I'm going to see to that you get a good education. I should say, Grandma, but I don't like school. She should say to me stuff like this, son, the same way I brought you into this world, I do what? I take you out. I'm like, Grandma, how are you going to take me out? You didn't even give birth to me. But in her mind, she really meant that thing, and she said it with a tremendous amount of passion. My grandmother had a different perspective. Elementary school, the primary grades, I did well, but it was a necessary evil. This was my mindset in school because, again, I felt like I didn't fit in. Give me the material. I'll learn it, I'll regurgitate it, let me get the good grades on the report card. No harm, no foul. That's how I went through elementary school. That's also how I went through high school. It wasn't until I got to college that things changed for me. Now let me back up for a second. When I was in the 5th grade, I did have a teacher because I switched schools. I went to a school for elementary called Sandy's. It used to be on Hamilton Avenue. It's no longer open. Then my grandmother took me out of that school, and she put me in Sacred Heart, which is on South Broad Street in Trenton, New Jersey. Now, when I went to Sacred Heart in South Broad Street in Trenton, New Jersey, I had one teacher, I had a black female teacher for English in the 5th grade. Well, I don't like English. So since I didn't like English, guess what? I didn't like her either. So that wasn't a positive experience. Then I get to high school, and I did have a black teacher. Guess what subject he taught? No. Jim. His name was Bob Harrison. He had played football. I think he played professional football. He became a PE teacher. So I actually had him for help. And that was the first time I actually had a black male teacher. All right, in any capacity. But I still had no desire for school. Once I arrived on the campus at New Jersey City University, NJCU as it's now called, they had an African American Studies program. I decided I'm going to take an African American class, African American history class. Let me tell you, it changed my entire life. It was a whole paradigm shift for me. It changed the whole trajectory of my life. Because up until that point, you have to understand, I was probably about 20 years old at this point. So think about how much school I have been through at this point in my life. I'm 20 years old, have an African American studies class. And I have this African American history teacher that's now talking to me about the value and purpose of an education. Now, no one ever broke it down to me like this before. My grandmother told me, you have to get an education. So I knew I had to get an education because she told me. But when I was in the African American studies class, the professor started breaking it down to us and talking to us about Dr. King. Everybody's familiar with Dr. King, correct? Yes? I don't want to assume. Okay, Dr. King. So he talked to us about the fact that Dr. King wrote an article in 1947 called The Purpose of an Education. But he also taught me some things that I had never heard before. For example, do you guys know that Dr. King skipped 9th grade and 11th grade? Yes? No? Dr. King skipped 9th grade and 11th grade. Dr. King graduated high school at the age of 15. Now, the first thing it did for me internally was it inspired me. Well, why was I inspired? Number one, I was inspired because I was being taught by somebody that looked like me. I was being inspired because somebody that looked like me was showing me the correlation between how the life that I want to live ties into an education. So I then learned that Dr. King, who was someone I grew up listening to and admiring, even though I never met him, graduated at the age of 15. I'm like, well, if I'm 20 and he graduated at 15, I got a lot of catching up to do. Then he talked to us about the article. Now, Dr. King wrote this article in 1947 at the age of 18 years old, while he was a junior at Morehouse College. He was a junior at Morehouse College while he wrote this article. Well, why did Dr. King write this article? He wrote this article because when he was walking around the campus at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, he recognized that some of his peers didn't understand the true value and purpose of an education. That was me. So the article summarized this way. The true value and purpose of education is this. It's intelligence plus character. It's intelligence plus character. See, the reason why I believe the work that you do is so important is because not only are you helping students gain a level of intelligence, but you're also going to help them develop and become people of high character. When I learned this, it changed the whole paradigm for me in terms of how I view an education. It now inspired me to want to be an educator myself. The very thing that my grandmother wanted me to be 18, 17 years prior, because when growing up, my grandmother used to say, son, I want you to be an educator. I said, Grandma, you're crazy. Why would I want to be an educator? It didn't make any sense to me. Here I am now at the age of 20, realizing the whole true purpose of that education, and now I too want to be an educator just like my grandmother, just like this teacher was being for me. So fast forward, I go on, I graduate from school, I go overseas and play professional basketball in the European League. While I'm playing basketball, I get married. I then find out my wife's we're going to have a child. Well, I didn't have my father in my life. So since my father wasn't involved in my life, I wanted to make sure I was going to be present in my son's life. So I cut my career short and came back to the States. And said, I want to do for students the very thing that was done for me. See, the reason why, again, I say you're so important is because Maya Angelou has a quote. Her quote says this. She says, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. I'm a mere representation of what you all do. See, you don't know the seeds that you're planting. That's why the quote's important for you to understand. Don't judge each day by the harvest that you reap. Judge each day by the seed that you sow. You're sowing seeds, and you have been sowing seeds. And you may not live to see them reap, the harvest reap. You don't know what the students have given you problems in the past. You don't know what those students have been going through. But if you literally care about them and you invest time and you have the right perspective as it pertains to the work that you do, you're changing lives. I'm a mere representation of it. I'm standing here telling you what you do matters. When I came back from overseas, I decided I want to get an education. I went back. And I went to graduate school to get my master's. Do you know that I was one of the first college graduates ever to get an undergrad degree in my family? Think about me now going back to get my master's. That was unheard of. But it was because I've had some teachers that inspired me. And teachers of different races and ethnicities, let me be clear, I do believe we need diversity. But the teachers that really impacted me were the teachers that set the bar. They gave me high expectations. And they also taught me the value of time on task. What you do most, you do what?
Well,
Best. What you do most, you do best. Time on task. Trust me, I know. My grandmother taught me that. My grandmother was crazy, y'all. She was crazy. I'm not lying. My grandmother, you laughing, I'm dead serious. My grandmother, I'm like, this woman is nuts. Let me give you a quick example before I get back to college. Growing up, I had 2 months off in the summertime like most students do, right? What do most kids want to do in the summer? Play. What else? Sleep. And eat. Right, that's it. Play, sleep, and eat. You 100%. That's what I wanted to do. That's normal. At least I thought so. Right? No, my grandmother, high expectations, time on task. My grandmother used to come to school, and I thought my grandmother was like in a gang or something. Right? I really did. I thought she was gang affiliated. I'm not joking. I thought she was gang affiliated. Because everywhere in the community, everybody knew Miss Ty. Everybody's like, that's Miss Ty. This is Miss Ty's grandson. And I'm like, this is amazing. How does this woman have all these connections with all these people in the community? Well, it was just so happens, fortunate for her, unfortunate for me, we live close to a library. So in the summertime, I would have 2 months off. I'm thinking I'm going to sleep, have fun, rest, play video games. My grandmother said, I'm going to give you 1 week off. How long? 1 week. I said, 1 week, and then what? You going to go to summer school? I'm like, what? That makes no sense. Now, when I was growing up, summer school was only for the kids that were kind of like needed extra work. So I'm like, Grandma, I don't need extra work. I graduate, like I'm moving to the next grade. Everything is cool. She was like, I don't care what you want. This is what you need. You need time on task. So this is what she would do. My grandmother would send me to the library. I'm not joking, y'all. Every single day, Monday through Friday, and I couldn't go outside until I went to the library, completed the work that she set out for me to do, and then I could play from 6 to 8 p.m. I remember it like yesterday, talk about being traumatized, right? I was traumatized. But that's how it was every day in the summertime. My grandmother had this mindset. She said, son, if you get 2 months off from school, and you do that for 12 years, you've taken 24 months off from learning. She called it a learning gap. She called it a learning gap, right? We're familiar with the academic achievement gap. My grandmother called it a learning gap. She said, but let me give it to you from a different perspective, Reggie. She said, if you study 2 months that you're off, and you just do a little bit at a time, over the span of 12 years, that's 24 months where you've increased your intelligence, you've increased your knowledge. My grandmother believed in time on task. My grandmother taught me expectations, and she had a certain perspective that I've never forgot. And I couldn't understand how she was able to carry and conduct herself. And I thought it was just me. But what I learned was this is how my grandmother was with each and every one of her students. It was known because as I got older, my son's 13. When I was 13 in the 8th grade, I would go around the local neighborhood and kids would tell me, Miss Tice, your grandma. Boy, don't play with Miss Tice. Miss Tice, she's mean. Now, when students say a teacher is mean, they're just saying that you have rules. You have expectations. You have standards. But I remember this like clear as day. I remember them saying, Miss Tice is mean, but she's what? Fair. Oh, that's powerful. She's mean, but she's fair. I learned that. So then fast forward, after I come back from playing professional basketball, I decided I want to go into the classroom. Shock my grandmother. Shock me too. I go into the classroom. I'm teaching the character development, social, emotional learning curriculum. And now I see students. But I remember exactly what it felt like to sit in the same seats that they occupy. But I have a deep passion and desire to help these students see the value of an education. Because the one thing that I know standing here today, it wasn't professional basketball that changed my life. It was education that changed my life. Let me say it again. It was not professional basketball. I hope they get this on camera. That changed my life. It was education that changed my life. Once I understood the true value and purpose of an education. So here I am in the classroom now. I'm going in as a specialist. And I never forget, it was the first day of school one year. This is back in 2019. And as I'm walking down the hallway, the classroom teacher stops me before I get ready to enter the classroom. She says, Reggie, she said, you have a second, I just want to talk to you real quick. I said, sure, no problem. She said, there's a kid in your class that you're going to have. His name is Zai. She said, Zai, he doesn't really pay attention in class. She said, Zai is not disruptive. He doesn't do any work. He doesn't do any homework. But he's not going to misbehave. She said, he kind of just sits in class with his head pointing down to the floor. I said, well, excuse me, why is that? She said, I really don't know. She said, we've spoken to his parents. We've done all we can do. I really don't know what else to do with him. I said, okay. So I come into the classroom, and I greet the students the same way I greet them any other day. I come in and I say, good morning. They all say, good morning. And I say, scholars, my name is Mr. Wright. I'm here to teach you a character development, social, emotional learning curriculum. I'm here because I care. I'm not here because I have to be here. I'm not here because they're paying me to be here. I understand we live in a world that's transactional. This is how I talk to my students. I know we live in a world that's transactional, but I want you to know that I am strictly here because I care about you. Each and every one of you have worth and you have value. And I'm committed to the rest of my life to making sure that you understand the worth and value that you have. So before we open up these workbooks, I want you to know that I'm here because I believe in you. I want you to know that. That's how I entered the classroom that morning. And sure enough, as I scanned and panned the room, I saw Zai sitting to my left, kind of where you're sitting, sir. And Zai was sitting, but his head, like she said, was looking down towards the floor. Now, I teach a curriculum that's 10 weeks long, 10 different lessons. I never say anything about Zai. But one of the things I try to do when I go into the classroom each and every day is find something to affirm or point out to the students that's positive about them. Ma'am, I love your glasses. I love your hair. Oh, I love that blazer right there. That's sharp. You picked that out. That's good. You did a good job. Yeah, honestly. You did a good job. I always try to find something positive to say about them. And I did that for every single week. I would come in and teach, affirm them, and say something positive. And every time that I came into the classroom, like that teacher told me, she told me the God is true. Zai was sitting there and his head was pointing down. But then something changed. Something changed. November 4th, 2019, I walked into the classroom. It was 5 days after Halloween. I come in, and as I'm standing there, I said, how was everyone's Halloween? They all went, oh, we had a great time. Would anyone like to share with me what you were for Halloween? What was your costume? Now, I had spoken the previous Thursday, and the school had a Halloween parade that Friday. Is everybody tracking? So I'm standing in the classroom, and I said, who would like to share with me what they were for Halloween or what costume you wore to school for the Halloween parade? A bunch of hands went up in the air. And I'm looking at the room. I'm looking this way first where Charity is, and I scan. I see hands up, and I get to my left. Can you believe it? Zai's head was down. Head down, hand up. Head down, hand up. I said, I have to call on Zai. I need to know what Zai has to say. So I said, go ahead, Zai. What were you for Halloween? Zai's hand was what? Down. Head never came up. Head down. Zai said, with his head down, he said, Mr. Wright, I was you. Now I'm standing there, I said, Zai, this is not the time to be funny. This is not the time to be funny, Zai. Honestly, what were you for Halloween? Zai's head was where? Down. Zai pulled his head up for the first time and said, Mr. Wright, I'm not being funny. I was you. And I remember looking to the right at the classroom teacher that was sitting to my right, and I said, is he being funny? And she said, no, he was you. So then I looked back to Zai again. I said, Zai, why would you be me for Halloween? I was truly confused. Zai said, because you had the biggest impact in my life. I had to gather my thoughts because I had a class to teach. I had to compose myself. But once that class was over, I asked Zai, I said, can I ask you one thing? I said, are you willing to take a picture with me? I will cherish this for the rest of my life. And he said, sure. And I never forget asking Zai. I said, Zai, how could I have had the biggest impact in your life? I've been in this classroom for 7 weeks. Zai said, because you shifted my perspective. That's exactly what he said to me, a 5th grader. He said, you changed my perspective. Do you know perspective drives performance? If you can shift someone's perspective, you can change their attitude. If you change their attitude, you can change the outcome. That's why I tell you, the work that you do, you guys are game changers. You're shifting perspective and you're changing people's lives. All it takes is one teacher, one coach, one mentor, and you can change someone's life forever. I want to leave you with this story, because I know we have a few minutes, and I want to be respectful of Miss Charity and her time.
You can keep going, keep going.
After I learned the true value of pursuit of education, which was intelligence plus character. Intelligence plus what? Character. I started doing what my grandmother taught me to do. My grandmother said, Reggie, when you don't know what to do, I know we're in the public school stuff, but she said, when you don't know what to do, she said, son, pray. So I started praying that God could help me and put someone in my life that could help me understand what it means to become a person of character and gain intelligence. So I started praying. Because I didn't have a father. My father's an alcoholic. What y'all don't know, though, is my father grew up on the next block over. I grew up on a 100 block in the Wilbur section of Trenton, New Jersey, Howard Avenue, between East State and Walnut Avenue. My father lived the next block over. What I'm saying is this, for those of you that are sitting in the back by the paintings, you're as close to me as my father was to me if he came out his back door. But every time my father came out his back door, it was like looking at a stranger. I had no idea who he was, even though I knew that he helped create me. So when I was in college, I started praying. I said, Lord, I need somebody in my life that can help me in terms of intelligence plus character. Well, February 2002, life changed for me. My college coach at NJCU came into the locker room. Came into the locker room and said, I have one ticket. I have one ticket for tonight's game. The New York Knicks are playing the New Jersey Nets. East Rutherford, New Jersey. Does anyone want to go to the game? I was a junior at the time. I had an old school coach, throwback coach. He believed in, upperclassmen, seniority, so to speak. So I'm waiting for all the seniors to raise their hand. Because I know if they raise their hand, the ticket's going right to them. It's never going to see me. So I'm standing there, or sitting there rather. I scan the room, nobody raised their hand. Coach, hey, I'll go. I only got one ticket. Coach, I heard you. I'll go. One ticket? Free ticket? This is free, right? To the Knicks and Nets game? I'll go. So when my coach gives me this ticket, I get dressed. I'm getting ready to walk to the cafeteria on the college campus. And I remember the Knicks had this player named Charlie Ward. Now, I grew up here in Trenton, so we kind of had a unique situation where we got New York sports teams and we got Philly. Now, I grew up watching the Philly side of things. The Eagles, my grandmother taught Troy Vincent. I used to follow the Eagles. I used to follow the Sixers. But my uncle, Big Blue, through and through. Big Blue this. The Knicks, the Giants, the Rangers. I'm like, bro, you never even seen hockey. How do you like the Rangers? You never been to a game before. It makes no sense to me. But he was New York through and through. So I remember, like, my uncle, it's like religion to him. He comes to my grandmother's house. I'm like, I thought you was coming to visit your mother. How come the TV is like, that's the main thing, priority? But I remember watching the Knicks and not watching the game, but watching the post-game interviews. And I remember this man named Charlie Ward, how he always carried and conducted himself in his interviews. He struck me as a man of high character. I said to myself, I have to meet this man, Charlie Ward. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I have to create a plan in my mind to meet this man named Charlie Ward. So that's what I did. I created this unique plan in my mind. The game starts at 7:30. I'm going to drive my 1992 Ford Escort. And I'm going to ride. Don't laugh. I see you laughing. Don't laugh. Don't laugh. I like my 1992 Ford Escort, brother. Don't laugh, all right? I'm going to drive my 1992 Ford Escort. And I'm going to get to the arena as early as I can, 6 p.m. I'm going to get in. I'm going to walk down as far as I can walk before security will stop me. I'm going to get there early because if I get there early, the players will be warming up. So that's what I did. I drive my car. I get to the arena. I walk in early. I walk down as far as I can walk. Sure enough, security stopped me. Young man, I need you to stop me right there. No problem, sir. I then scan the room. I see a bunch of players warming up. And I'm looking. But there's a problem. What's my problem? There's no Charlie Ward. No Charlie Ward. But sure enough, here comes a guy coming across the court. His name is Don Chaney. He's the Knicks head coach. I go, excuse me, Coach Chaney. Excuse me, Coach Chaney. He goes, yes, young man. I said, Coach Chaney, can I talk to you for a second? Please, can I talk to you, sir? He said, sure. He walks over towards me. I said, Coach Chaney, I'm a junior in college. I'm a young man that's seeking some guidance. Would you do me a favor, please, sir? Would you ask Mr. Charlie Ward, would he be willing to come out and speak to me, sir? He said, sure. Coach Chaney walks through the tunnel. He vanishes. I stand there and I'm just waiting. It feels like an eternity. But after a couple minutes, I see this guy coming out the tunnel, buttoning up his warm-up. It was Charlie Ward. He walks directly to me. And he says, how can I help you? I said, Mr. Ward, I'm a junior in college. I'd just like to have a few minutes of your time. I'm seeking some guidance, some mentorship. I'm trying to pursue an education, but I also want to become a man of high character. He said, I tell you what. He said, meet me in section 117 after the game. I started looking. I got to find one section 17. Yes, I'll meet you in section 117 after the game. Anybody here have kids that ever played rec sports, rec basketball? So when the kids play rec sports, rec basketball, they have what's called, for some of you may know, some of you may not know, they have something called a running clock. That means the clock runs, it doesn't stop. I wish that the NBA gave that name as a running clock. I don't remember what happened in the game. You laughing, I'm so serious. I don't remember what happened in the game. But all I know is I wanted to be a running clock. When the game was over, I go stand in section 117. So I'm standing in section 117. It's the friends and family section. I didn't even know they had a friends and family section. But I'm standing in section 117. Now, how many of you know that fear can play a trick on your mind? You know that, right? You know that fear can cause you to do some things in terms of losing out on some opportunities in some situations. So I'm standing in section 117, just like I'm standing here right now. And there literally is a gentleman to my left, just like this gentleman's to my left. And the guy to my left, just like you, has a beard. Salt and pepper beard, salt and pepper hair. I'm standing there, the guy's standing there. As I'm standing there, I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me. I don't know who he is. I'm thinking to myself, Charlie Ward is not going to come up. He's not going to come up to see me. So you know what I'm going to do? What am I going to do? I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave. So I have this internal battle going. Then I make a decision. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and head out. Before I get ready to move, here comes Charlie Ward. Charlie Ward comes up, comes through the tunnel, comes up the stairs, comes standing over next to me, and he says, young man, how can I help you? I said, Mr. Ward, I said, I'm seeking some guidance. I said, my father wasn't in my life. I said, I know I want to become someone successful in life, but I know I need a coach, a teacher, or a mentor. I know I need someone that can help provide me with some structure and some guidance if I want to be successful in this game called life. Charlie said this. He said, I'm going to give you my cell phone number. but it wasn't actually a cell phone number. We're a little bit older contingent in here. Y'all remember when we had like Motorola two-way pagers? Remember the sidekicks? Charlie gave me his two-way pager phone number. And he said, we'll continue to talk. The guy that was standing to my left was Charlie Ward Sr., his father, his high school coach. He said, Pops, this is Reggie. Reggie, this is my Pops. We then walked out of the arena together, and we walked to his car. I'll never forget, Charlie had a Mercedes ML 350. And I remember going to his car and saying, thank you, Mr. Ward, and shaking his hand. And as I left his presence and went back to my 1992 Ford Escort, tears are streaming down my face because I couldn't understand why he would actually give me his phone number, if it was his real number, is what I was thinking. But sure enough, I would text Charlie every single day on that two-way pager. And then that summer, the summer of 02, I get a page at 7 a.m. in the morning, and I had a special ringtone for Charlie. When it went off, I almost jumped up. Like literally, it was like an out-of-body experience. I opened up my two-way pager, and Charlie said, I'm going to the practice facility today in Westchester, New York. It's where the Knicks practice. You're welcome to come with me if you would like. I couldn't pack my bags fast enough. I packed my bags, and I'm not lying to you. I go to New Jersey Transit in Trenton, New Jersey, and I hop on the train. I forgot to tell my grandmother I was leaving. I forgot. That's how excited I was. I took the train to Penn Station and then connected. When I got there, Charlie picked me up. We went to the practice facility and we practiced. Afterwards, I think he's going to take me back to the train station. But he didn't. He said, you can come to my house for lunch. I said, you're going to bring me to your house for lunch? He said, why not? He brought me to his house for lunch. After we finished eating lunch, Charlie said, what do you have going on for the rest of the summer, Reggie? I said, I don't have anything going on, Mr. Ward. He said, well, if you want to go back home and pack some stuff, listen to me carefully. Listen to me. He said, if you want to go back home and pack some stuff, you're welcome to stay with me for the rest of the summer. That's how I look. Like, are you serious? That's exactly what I did. I went home and packed some stuff. I took the train back and I stayed with Charlie. What you don't know is the first time that I ever stayed in a house where I saw a husband and wife together. It's the first time I ever stayed in a house where I saw two African American couples together that were mother and father, not grandmother and grandfather. When I walked into the house, his son Caleb, who's now 24 or 25, was 2 years old at the time. He said, Caleb, show Mr. Reggie to his room. We went to a guest room that had a room with a bathroom attached to it. I had never seen that before. I didn't know it existed. See, what Charlie did for me was Charlie was showing me what it means to become a man of high character. I learned from Charlie what it looks like to not be a basketball player, but a husband, but a father, but a man. Charlie was educating me outside the classroom. Charlie educated me because Charlie believed in me. I remember asking Charlie a question, a very unique question that I want you to think about for yourself. I said, Charlie, why did you do what you did for me? And Charlie said, I did what I did for you because I cared. Basketball is what I do. I want to use this platform to help other people like yourself. I am the man that I am today because of people like you and people like Charlie Ward, who's now a teacher and a coach. You guys instill value and purpose into students. Please don't ever forget that. Inky Johnson has a quote that says this: how you view what you do will always affect how you do what you do. How you view what you do will always affect how you do what you do. Please don't ever lose sight of why you do what you do. Because it's people like me that wouldn't be who I am today. I have an undergrad in computer science. I have a master's in education. And I have a PhD in educational leadership. It's because of people like you. You've instilled hope and you've inspired me. Please do the same for other students. I'm going to leave you with this quote because I know I have to go. There's a woman by the name of Mandy Hell that has a quote that says this: to make a difference in someone's life, to make a difference in someone's life, you don't have to be brilliant, rich, beautiful, or perfect. You just have to care. That's my time. Thank you.